Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Preview Show. Yes, we're back with a whole host of reveals. My name's Lewis and I'll be your host for the show, bringing you all the latest releases from the Warhammer universe. All you need to do is sit back, relax and get excited. Easy. So without further ado, let's kick things off with our first reveal. Yes, the Elite Sisterhood arrives with a new Codex and a Battle Force 2. I'm joined by Stu and Josh from the Warhammer Studios to talk all things Adeptus Sororitas. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us. Always good to be here.
Pleasure to have you. So let's jump straight in then, chat a little bit about the Codex and what players can expect to experience from the Sisters of Battle.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, they're the elite forces of the Ecclesiarchy, so the kind of imperial faith, a whole warrior sisterhood equipped in power armour. And this is, a really great codex and a great miniature release for them.
Nice. And they've got some new detachments as well. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so now, of course, with the indexes, you get one detachment. In the codex, you've now got a choice of 4 different detachments to play through. Okay. One of the detachments stays very similar to the index. So if that's how you loved playing your Sisters Army, you can continue to enjoy it. But we've now given you 3 new ways to play that will focus on different types of units, depending on your flavour.
Oh, okay, very nice. We've also got a new miniature too, the Canoness with Jump Pack, alongside that Battle Force. Yep. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Canonesses are the kind of fighting leaders of the Sisters of Battle, and now we have one with a Jump Pack. Yeah. So she can lead Seraphim and Zephyrim into battle. She's actually kind of ties in nicely, doesn't she, with one of the detachments?
Yeah, so I mean, there's an Army of Faith detachment, and what that lets you do is you can do more acts of faith, and also the theme behind it is that angelic host. So the Jump Pack units, their strats mean that they have like auras which buff sisters nearby. So it's that like they see an angelic figure and it inspires them in battle to do greater feats.
Yeah, nice. So that whole battle force is themed around that new Canoness and that new detachment all kind of working together on the battlefield.
And it's a really cool kit as well. There's some like awesome options there. Can you chat us through a couple of like the different options, different variants?
Yeah, so she's got a couple of different weapon options, hasn't she? She's got the like two-handed halberd, which I think is the kind of, if you want to kill loads of individual things. And then she's got the power sword that you see on the front of the box.
Yes.
That's like the generic weapon, isn't it?
That's like your mid-range. You can target most types of units, and then also she can have a pistol at the same time with the power weapon. So if she wants to add a bit of shooting to a Seraphim unit, they're more of a shooting unit, she can join them. Whereas probably if she's going for the two-handed weapon options, she's probably going straight for combat in those builds.
Okay, nice. So chat to us a bit about the Battle Force as well, because no Canoness is complete without the Battle Force. So talk to us a bit about those.
So as Josh was saying, it's kind of themed around that angelic host idea. Yes. So a load of Seraphim, Zephyrim, and then it's got the Exorcist as well, hasn't it? Just so it's got some kind of long-range punch.
Yeah, to give you some options other than just charging headlong at the opponent, you've got some range as well. But I mean, the great thing for us is because the Canoness now adds a brand new option, those angelic units only had Saint Celestine before that could lead them, and she was an epic hero, so you could only take one. Whereas now you can take multiple, if you want to, Canonesses with jump packs, leading your host of angelic figures.
Yeah, you can really lean into that particular detachment, can't you? And as Josh was saying earlier, there's a couple of other detachments. There's the Penitent Host, isn't there, which is the kind of Archoflagellants.
Yeah, if you want to punish yourself and you're like, that's I'm going to go down the Penitent route, or you want to go down all the little walkers they have. There's also a detachment, if you, from the lore and background, the Sisters of Battle rely heavily on bolters, melter, and flamer weaponry. There's a detachment that's built all around bringing those weapons to bear. And then also, as I said, if you like the playing as you currently do, that's still fully supported as well.
Yeah, and they still have Acts of Faith, don't they? That's still their army rule,
yes.
Which is kind of tweaked and updated from the index, but still very similar. Nice. So there's lots of things there that kind of existing Sisters of Battle players will find familiar, but also some great new things that the new Canoness kind of opens up, some new ways of playing, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. One thing I really want to know is some of your top highlights from the Battle Force or the Codex as well, or both.
I mean, for me, it has to be the new Canon S. I mean,
Yeah,
just that
yeah,
there's
yeah.
such a cool model, the weapon options. I think there's lots of choice between all, but the Hellbeard is going to be the winner for me. It just looks
Yeah.
so cool. So.
Yeah, I think for me there's a spread in the codex which kind of shows, I guess, the kind of organisation of the Adeptus Sororitas, and I think it's really interesting when you get to see kind of how your miniatures on the battlefield kind of fit into kind of the wider structure of like a military force.
Yeah.
And the guy's done a really good job of kind of presenting that and kind of showing how it all kind of fits together into the kind of the structure overall of the Sisters of Battle. So I think that's a really neat feature of the book.
Nice. Well, Stu, Josh, thank you ever so much for coming in to chat to us about all things Sisters of Battle. Don't go anywhere, Warhammer fans. We'll be right back with some more news from the 41st millennium. Just when you thought one codex was enough, the Gene Stealer cults emerge from out of the shadows to reveal one and a Battle Force box too. We're back with Stu and Josh from the Warhammer studio to talk all things Gene Stealer cults. Guys, welcome back.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Let's jump straight back in and chat about the Gene Stealer cults codex. What can players experience with this one?
So it's a super fun codex. I think it's got some of the most interesting kind of rules mechanics and things in it, I think, with the kind of cult ambush and the way that works is super interesting.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most unique army rules in the game at the moment. So units popping up, you think you finally dealt with them as an opponent, then they come back again. It makes for a new challenge, definitely.
Yeah, we really wanted to kind of capture that feeling of like a guerrilla war. You know, so your opponents kind of stumbled into this plot that the Gene Stealer cultists have been working on for eons. That suddenly comes to fruition. So really trying to capture that both in terms of the kind of background of the book, all the artwork and stuff, but also really importantly with your toy soldiers on the tabletop, trying to give it that kind of guerrilla warfare feel.
Yeah, nice. And with the codex, there's a couple of new detachments as well. Can you talk us through some of those?
Yeah, so over to you, Josh.
Yeah, so there's 5 detachments in the new book. So again, if you love how your current index plays, there is, and one of the detachments still fits that theme and will let you continue to enjoy how you play. But what we've also tried to give you is a variety of units that you can now use in different ways. So be that you really like the bikes and you want to play like an outrider force and you're sort of circling around your opponent, you want to focus on combat heavy and hitting really hard with aberrants and pure strain Gene Stealers. You want to swarm over your opponent with hybrids and again drag them down in combat. There's that. There's lots of different ways to play in the new book.
Nice.
I think one of my favourites is the Brood Brothers.
Yeah.
So where you're kind of Gene Stealer cult have kind of infiltrated the local kind of PDF forces or an Imperial Guard regiment. So players can still field that as well. I think there's some really interesting stuff in the book around that. We've got a little hobby section near the end showing you how you can kind of convert up your models to kind of show that they've kind of gradually taken over the Imperial Guard from the inside, which is super fun.
And a ton of options as well.
Yeah, and that's from the rules point of view, that's a really cool way of doing it as well, because a lot of the allies normally are a much smaller part of your force, whereas with this codex, what it's allowed us to do is up to half of your army can be in Astra Militarum units. So that really lets you customize your force. If you've wanted to design an Imperial Guard force, it maybe is not quite as loyal to the Emperor as they once were. You can now do that to full effect.
Yeah, super fun.
So we've also got a brand new miniature to accompany the Battle Force. Can you tell us a bit about the Benefactors?
Yeah, the Benefactors. So the Gene Stealers are quite an interesting kind of thing in the sense that they kind of infiltrate other species' kind of life cycle.
Yeah.
And so some of them, the Gene Stealers, look very human and kind of like wander through society and no one really notices.
Right.
And as the cycle goes on, sometimes they kind of get these mutants and these other kind of things that appear. The Benefactors, I think, would definitely struggle to kind of stay concealed in
Yeah, I
Imperial
think so.
society with his giant brain.
Yeah.
So he's a really, really fun new character. He's essentially like an anti-tank kind of mental brain blasting kind of creature, isn't he? Is what he does.
Yeah, so I mean, he now has one of the strongest guns in the arsenal because he just mind blasts them, and so that's very good. It gives you a new option as a Genestealer Cult player to tackle those either big monsters or big vehicles.
Yes.
And then what he also does, so he has sort of a dual role, he also gives the Unity Joins lethal hits, which again is a great way of now a unit can try and tackle maybe one of those big tough units that it couldn't do before. So really that's how he synergizes into the army. He goes, okay, how can I crack big tough targets? The Benefactors is now opening up a brand new option for me.
It's just blasting up tanks with some psionic power.
Yes, yeah.
exactly. And it's one of those things where like the Genestealer stuff's quite mysterious, and these kind of mutants appear in the kind of Genestealer life cycle kind of when they're needed.
Yes.
And so no one's quite sure like how does that work? How do they know that now's the time to kind of deploy that particular type of character? So yeah, really fun new bit of background, fabulous new miniature, great new tool for the game, isn't it?
Yeah. Chat to us a bit about the Battle Force as well. So tell us.
Yeah, so he's in that, which is great.
Of course, yeah.
And that Battle Force is actually themed off one of the detachments, isn't it?
Yeah, so again, we talked about one of the detachments is around the Aberrants and the Pure Strain Genestealers, and if you really want to do that like hard-hitting combat, this is a Battle Force is built around that. So you get Aberrants in there, you get Pure Strain Genestealers, and you get some supporting units as well.
Okay, lovely. And finally, before we wrap up, tell us a little bit about some of your highlights, like from the Codex and the Battle Force box as well. I think I have a good idea what one of you might pick.
The big brain has to be the win for me. I mean, I think the miniature's so cool, and it's so iconic, really, for me. So
Yeah, and I think there's a couple for me. I think obviously the Benefactors is super cool. I think the games development team have done a great job of capturing the different ways of playing through the detachments. I really like the Brood Brothers detachment. I think it's really interesting, and I quite like the idea of a whole army that looks like a bit like an Imperial Guard army, but actually isn't. Yeah, and I think that's really fun, and really pleased that we've been able to get some of the kind of conversion and hobby kind of tips in the book that kind of show people how they can do that with their miniatures.
Well, Stu, Josh, thank you ever so much for coming into the studio to chat to us a little bit about the Genestealer Cults. We can't wait for them to arrive really soon. Some awesome announcements there, straight out of the 41st millennium. Now I've got a feeling our Horus Heresy fans are going to really enjoy this next part. Let's check out some news straight from Mars. The sole rulers of the Red Planet are coming to the Horus Heresy. I'm joined by Quinn and Will from the studio to chat all things Mechanicum. Both, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
How you doing? Good?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Lovely. Yeah, very good, thank you. So, the Mechanicum has arrived. Tell us a little bit about this new army for the Horus Heresy and what they bring with them to the Age of Darkness.
So, the Mechanicum is an existing army range for the Horus Heresy. You can already get their full army rules in the Liber Mechanicum. They've existed since the first edition of the Heresy. It's a slowly expanding resin range from the original set that started at the very beginning, and now we're getting the opportunity to revisit them in a similar way to the Solar Auxilia.
Okay.
They're fieldable as a dedicated army or as an allied detachment. Legion players can also include them in their army list using certain console choices. So it's a great opportunity for players who field any force to get interested in the range.
So there's also some new kits in plastic arriving as well for loyalists and traitors alike. Can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Yeah, so all of these kits have been with us for quite a long time in resin, but it was good to get the opportunity to rework them in plastic and take advantage of the opportunities that process gives us.
So talk to me a bit more about that process, what in terms of sort of refreshing that range, like from resin to plastic. What's that like?
Yeah, well, both processes have quite different limitations and advantages. So you have quite a lot of freedom with resin, where you don't have to worry about the tool. Lots of undercuts and things like that. Yeah. So they're not necessarily the best designs to you probably wouldn't have made them that way in the first place if you knew you were making them as a plastic
Okay,
kit.
yes.
But then that gives you actually quite an interesting challenge when you do turn around to do that. The most difficult part is probably breaking them down into their component forms, because in resin you end up with a kind of a small number of large complex components, whereas in plastic you have to end up with a larger number of smaller, less complex components. Yeah. But it gives you opportunities to do things as well, like for example in the Thanatar, the plasma, I can't remember what that's called
Plasma
now.
bombard.
Plasma bombard was always intended to sort of open like a flower when it fires.
Okay.
But we couldn't give you two parts in resin because it adds too much to the cost of the kit. Whereas on plastic, if you have the frame space, you get the opportunity to add in those optional parts, so you can get a bit more variety when you build your collection.
Nice. Well, you guys have done an absolutely fantastic job with them as well. So talk us through what's on the table and this range refresh from Mechanicum.
So what you can see on the table is partly what is in the new Battle Force box for the Mechanicum. You have 6 Thalax, you have a Triaros armoured carrier, you have 2 Castellax, you also have 20 Tech Thralls, and in addition to the contents of the box, you have a new Archmagos model and a redesign of the Thanatar.
Very nice. Let's highlight these the infantry then. Talk to us a little bit more about those tech thralls.
Okay, so the opportunity was taken here to bring them a little bit more in line with the original background for them, adding a lot more of that kind of shambling undead feel. If you look closely at them, then they have a lot of like disjointed limbs, dragged feet, that kind of stuff. So they've got a lot more character than the old resin versions. Otherwise, they've tried to keep quite true to the originals in the original models in concept, at least. Just again an opportunity to update and improve as we move from resin to plastic.
So we've got the Archmagos on the table. Will, what can you tell us about this?
This guy's a new model altogether. The main goal was to try and differentiate the Mechanicum from the Adeptus Mechanicus that you'll find in 40k. So they do look very familiar. But there's things like they're a little bit like lighter feeling, less of the layered carapace armor, and slightly different look to their equipment. So, for example, this character's got a stave, whereas normally you'd see a lot of axes, that kind of thing. So that's the main goal.
Well, Quinn, Will, thank you so much for popping in to chat to us about all things Mechanicum. We're super excited for them to arrive in the Horus Heresy. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Don't go anywhere, because we've got lots more coming for the Horus Heresy right after this. Yes, a brand new campaign book for Legions Imperialis. Welcome back, Quinn, and welcome, Dan, to the show. How you doing?
Not too bad, thank you.
Yeah, good. Nice to have you. So let's jump straight in. Tell us a little bit about the devastation of Talon.
So what's broadly been known as the Battle of Talon refers to a roughly year-long campaign that takes place in the mid-years of the Heresy. It involves the Iron Warriors Legion attacking the Imperial muster world of Talon. Because that's such a large-scale campaign, we don't have the scope to go into that in any detail in a single book.
Okay.
So instead, the devastation of Talon focuses on the opening steps of the battle, which sets the stage for the later campaign. So that involves the Iron Warriors' initial attack on the world, the guerrilla war that emerges in the aftermath as the survivors fight on the surface in armoured vehicles, and finally the main focus of the book, which is a conflict known as the Fall of the Sapphire City, which is the first large-scale surface engagement. in which the Iron Warriors deploy en masse to counter oncoming Loyalist reinforcements.
Okay, so as always with a new campaign book brings some new and exciting ways to play Legions Imperialis. Can you tell us a little bit more about that as well?
So the Devastation of Talon expands on the Warfront campaign system presented in the Great Slaughter. These include things like the Breakthrough campaign, in which two players each have a stronghold and fight a series of linked battles with a push and pull mechanic to try and reach their opponent's stronghold. You have environmental special rules to reflect the horrifying toxic environment of Talon. You have a battle honor system that allows you to upgrade units that have performed well throughout the campaign. And finally, there's a new system called Formations of Legend, which allows you to recreate specific formations and divisions from the narrative of the book.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the miniatures that we might see sort of alongside that campaign book as well?
So both the Space Marine Legions and the Solar Auxilia get reinforcements alongside the book. For the Space Marines, these are the Sicaran Punisher, the Sicaran Arcus, the Sabre Strike Tank, and the Termite. On the Solar Auxilia side, you have a whole bunch of new Leman Russ variants, as well as the Shadow Sword, the Storm Sword, and the Storm Blade. Also included in the book are a number of new formations that allow you to field these different detachments in your existing Legions Imperialis armies.
Okay. Now, Dan, so new campaign book, which often gives you the opportunity to change some of the colour schemes, and that's something that you've done. So tell us a bit about that as well.
Yeah, so I think it's an exciting time to be a painter when the campaign book comes around, because I think actually, you get an opportunity to explore the other legions that we have. So actually we took the opportunity to go to Imperial Fists and Iron Warriors, our sort of main two Legion colour schemes. Both pose different challenges to one another. So at Imperial Fist, you have to be quite neat. And you've got quite a bright colour, so when you put in those shade colours on the top and doing the recess shade, it's quite apparent if you break out of that recess.
Yeah, of course.
And then likewise for Iron Warriors, glazing metallics and stuff like that sort of poses other challenges. To sort of pair the two together, it's sort of quite a nice challenge for the guys to kind of have to figure out.
Well, Quinn, Dan, thank you so much for popping in and talking to us about the Devastation of Talon. We can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, cheers. Now we're cooking. Another set of absolutely awesome releases and some really insightful stuff from the studios on what's to come too. Very exciting. You know what happens now? We dive straight back in with another announcement.
Over a century ago, something insidious was discovered lurking at the heart of Hive Secundus. The city was razed to the ground, and the ruins declared quarantine extremis. But even the Imperium's most diabolical weaponry couldn't destroy the memory of this forbidden city, and whispers spread across the planet. Whispers turned to rumors, tales of a nightmarish web of Xenos-infested tunnels and the resting place of untold riches. Now, tech hunters like yourselves risk their lives in search of these secrets. Great works of art, lost Archaeo treasures, and even data crystals containing the collected knowledge of Necromunda await you. But be warned, the cult of the Second Sun stands between the wealth of Hive Secundus and those who would dare plunder it. What would you risk to rise above the squalor of Necromunda?
Yes, Necromunda's new season, Hive Secundus, is on the way. I'm joined by Alex and Rob from the studio to talk all about the new setting. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, no worries. Absolute pleasure to have you. So let's start by delving into Hive Secundus. So where do we find ourselves in this new setting?
So Hive Secundus used to be the second greatest hive on Necromunda, only just behind Hive Primus. It was almost a Renaissance hive on Necromunda.
Nice.
And then the Hermiatus Magus came there when he was trying to cure the Gene Stealer curse. What he was doing was he was messing around with the genetics of the Gene Stealers, trying to find a way to reverse anything that they did, and basically protect all Imperial worlds from the Tyranids. Predictably, it all went a bit wrong.
As it does, it's 40k.
Exactly as it does in Warhammer 40,000.
Yeah.
So he ended up being infected himself. It gradually took him over and he unleashed the Gene Stealer curse upon Necromunda.
Okay.
And the cult of the Second Sun was born. Over many years, it gradually built up in secret until open rebellion occurred and the Hive turned against the House of Helmore. A decades-long war was fought for Secundus, and the space station above Necromunda, the Eye of Selene, was moved from its position directly above Hive Primus to be above Hive Secundus. at which point it unleashed all of the terrifying weapons upon the hive itself. That created a huge crater kilometres deep and just flattened the earth and created also this whole almost different area called the Secundan Abyss, with the ruins of the cracked and destroyed hive at the heart. This was thought to have destroyed the core of the second sun and wiped the Gene Stealers off Necromunda. However, there was still an exclusion zone set up around it called the Dust Wall, and no one was allowed to go in. The Patriarch did not die, but he was horrifically mutated and changed, leading to a corrupted and malformed force, which is the Malf strain Gene Stealer. Now, Spirers go in there in order to hunt these Gene Stealers.
So we got some Gene Stealers arriving too, as you mentioned, and we saw those in that awesome video there. So chat to us a little bit about what makes these so different from the pure strains that we're a bit more familiar with.
Their genetic code has been tampered with, which has led to mutations which have been exacerbated through the generations as well. They're still terrifying opponents, but they are not at the same level of power, the same level of strength as a pure strain Gene Stealer.
Okay, and in terms of a design point of view as well, Alex, how did you guys go about setting that up, sort of creating that kind of difference that we just heard about there?
For those Malstrain Gene Stealer, one of the main point was like, how could represent like evolution got horribly wrong.
Right.
So one of the aspects, okay, we needed to make them really more twisted, more feral. One of the main elements in the Tyranids, especially the Gene Stealers, when you look at, there's a certain symmetry in them.
Yeah.
So one of the first things that we did, obviously, is break all of that. We broke
Just change
everything.
those rules, yeah,
And
of course.
so the way the models are, all of them are really hunched, like the limbs and the finger on each side, they don't match, they're really curved. The face, they are all twisted, all of them are slightly different. Some of the plates are like lifted, you can have some boils, some bubbles, something, allowing them to really stand them aside from the pure strains. Yeah, this is how the original form looks like. This is how that mutated and twisted form looks like.
Yeah.
And in the law as well, this idea of like, because they are so twisted and so deformed, the signal that they send by to the hive mind is so distorting and so different that the hive mind is like, nope, we're not going there.
That's great. It's so great as well to hear that, like, it must be really useful for you as a designer as well to have that kind of juxtaposition, like something to go off. Like, here's this thing, this kind of standard shape. How do we break that and change that to create something else? So we've got some classic kits returning as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Horus Spire?
Yes, well, the Horus Spire harks back to the early days of Necromunda and the Outland supplement, and it's bringing them into the modern game of Necromunda. So the main thing now is they are all the signs of the Imperial House, so they are all part of House Helmor. In order to prove yourself worthy of taking on a position of authority and leadership within this great house, you have to prove your own personal prowess by going down into the depths of Hive Secundus in order to slay Gene Stealers and build your kill count and show how powerful and great a combatant you yourself are against the toughest foes on Necromunda.
Yeah.
They go in there with the Tech Hunters from the Vansar.
Okay.
And that's quite a symbiotic relationship. That they both need each other to go down there. Because the Vansar are desperate to go down there to plunder the riches and the wealth and the knowledge. Whereas the Spirers, they need to draw out the Malstrain Gene Stealers so they can actually attack them and kill them.
Okay.
And so it's sort of the
Here's the
Tech
bait.
Hunters are there as bait for them. Or sort of,
That's
here's
great.
some noisy humans
Yeah.
invading your home. Come, attack them. So I can then go and attack them back.
Yeah.
And that's also reflected in the campaign of there's the Spire and the Tech Hunters. There's slightly different things they're trying to achieve in the game. But they still need to work together or both will fail.
That's great. It's a fantastic relationship. So, Alex, chat to us a bit about, from a design point of view, how did you guys go about sort of reimagining that kind of classic kit?
One of the main thing about those suits that we have in the law, and that they are retrieved like, off-world by Helmor and like repurposed to be used for the nobles. And so, in terms of their design, the first thing that we looked at is like to make them deliberately strange and not totally human. So, because one of the things that the noble have to do to be able to wear those suits is they have to go through heavy body modification to be able to go in those suits. As you can see on some of the models, some of them have their lower leg amputated, they have like their spine reinforced, bones are stretched, so they can fit into those armor. So once again, showing that it's not totally human or totally imperial if you have to do that, right? And one of the other things that we did to represent that aspect is we stepped away from more imperial shape, like those straight line, that hardness, or something anything Gothic, in favor of something more fluid, more organic, even slightly insectoid.
That's really great that it sort of shares the same themes as the Genestealer cults in terms of looking at those shapes and changing them to create something sort of other. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah. There's a certain elegance in one, while there's definitely something twisted and feral on the other one.
Yeah, of course.
The two expressions of the same pattern, which is
So
like quite nice and unique.
Definitely, yeah. Well, thank you ever so much, both of you, for coming in to chat to us about the new season of Necromunda Hive Secundus. It's been really great.
No, thank you
It's been
very
a
much
pleasure.
for
Thank you very
having
much
us.
for having
Thank you.
us.
Yeah, no worries at all. Well, that is all we've got time for. What a show and what a series of announcements. A great big thank you to all of the fabulous people from our Warhammer studios for talking to us about all the latest reveals. And a great big thank you to you for being with us. We hope you've enjoyed it just as much as we have. Remember to head to the Warhammer community website if you'd like to find out more about any of the upcoming releases. And don't forget to follow us on all our socials to keep up to date with all the latest news. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on the Warhammer Preview Show.